Okay, welcome back. In today's episode I'm going to be showing you how to replace a bad character RAM. In this situation here I have Legend of Zelda, and you can clearly see there's a lot of graphic distortion, a lot of glitches, and this doesn't look right in any way. So I'm going to show you how to fix it and the steps I took to get this cartridge fixed. And then I have another cartridge with a similar fault. I'll be taking a look at that as well. So since the game started and the graphics were distorted, I assume that the program ROM is okay, and it's probably the work RAM. So I do start with the work RAM. Now that's the chip on top. Now keep in mind I did test for continuity and clean the cartridge before I even started swapping out components. That's generally what you're supposed to do first. Make sure that everything is clean, there's no broken traces, you have continuity, and then you could start pulling off components. So just to save time, I already did that off camera and I know that it's not working, so I start with the work RAM chip on top first. So here I have a board that's socketed for it's my test board, so I actually test all the RAM sticks on this board. It's just a Super Mario Brothers 3 cart, and I actually socketed the character ROM and the program ROM for the Super Mario Brothers 3 because it's a fairly common game, and if I have one that's broken I could actually take the chip off one and put it right there on that board and test it out. But it's mostly used in this and for me as a RAM tester. So in this situation, the RAM that I pulled off the Zelda board is working, so this RAM stick is okay. So here's the website, BootGod or something like that. I'll link it in the description. You could actually find out every PCB board for every NES game and Famicom game. In this situation, Legend of Zelda uses an SRAM chip for the character RAM and also an SRAM chip for the work RAM. So you know these chips are actually interchangeable, so you can just swap them out and they will work as long as right there you see on U2. The U2 is the second chip on the board, is character RAM. If it's a character ROM, then you can't just swap it out. So here's the chip that I suspect is faulty. Here's something that sometimes I forget to mention. Now this chip has a little notch on one end, and on the silk screen it also shows a notch, so you know that the orientation of the chip is the notch goes with the notch. And in this case this chip also has a dot, and that indicates the first pin on this package, so you know that the first pin, sometimes the silk screen will have an arrow pointing to the first pin or a number. In this case it has both. This chip has both indicators. So here's the board fully assembled, and I'm just going to plug it up, see what happens. So the game seems to be working. That screen is much better. I'm just going to add a name here and try to get to the game. But so far so good, and you already know. So now in the previous episodes I show you that the work RAMs go bad, and in this episode I show you that the character RAMs can go bad as well. So I know I discovered this trick about a week or two ago, I repaired a Contra that had a bad character RAM, and I was happy about that, so I took the time to learn it once or figure something out, and now I can always use it in the future. So I always like to share techniques with the community. Hopefully somebody will take something from this. I know there are some expensive games out there that people just think they swap both character ROM and character RAM and program ROM together, and they put it on a brand new donor board and it shows the same symptoms because they're not replacing the RAM chip. And some games are like that. You can fix them, but some people just don't take the time to look up the PCB board schematic and see what the chip is. So I always X out my broken chips. As you can see on the top left hand side of the screen, there are some chips up there. They're already, I know that they're bad. I've been fixing cartridges all day, so I know that those 3 chips at the top are bad, so I mark them before I toss them out. And at the end of the day, if they're RAMs, I'll always double check them on my board there and see if because I don't want to throw away anything that's working, so I always double check everything, but I do mark them with an X. So this game is working. Let's get to the next game. So surprise, it's another Zelda game. So let me start this up, and as you can see, it looks like the Riddler designed this game. So clearly it's wrong. Let's open it up, see if there's any broken traces. Spoiler, I already cleaned the cartridge and I already checked for broken traces. There are none. So next thing is to start swapping components. So on the outside, this cartridge is actually really clean. I didn't expect any corrosion or rust or any broken traces. So the first thing I'm going to swap on this one is the work RAM chip. Sometimes when you try to pry up these chips after you clear them, they're still stuck in place. So try to wiggle the pins a bit and try to shake the chip out. Don't pry it up if you want to clear as much solder as possible, because you don't want to rip up one of these through holes, because that's going to give you a bigger problem. So make sure to clear as much solder as you can, even if you have to reapply some solder and then clear it again. So here's that RAM stick I just pulled off my Zelda board, and I put it in my Super Mario 3 test board here. And it seems to be okay, but I'm just going to put this RAM stick aside and I'll use a new one. I have a lot of these on hand. I save these from various different donor boards or any project that I have. So I'm just going to add a new one here and see if it fixes the problem. If not, I'll swap out the character RAM. So here's the board with the new chip. Let's see if I can get something different. So I still get the same screen and it's the same issues. So what I suspect is a different chip that's bad. So yeah, the RAM that I pulled off was good, and even in the Super Mario Bros. 3 it didn't give me any faults. So I suspect that the character RAM is also bad in this game. The last pins on each row always give me problems. I always pull the trigger on the desoldering gun too soon. Now these are the ground pins, so you should really wait a second or two more than you would with the address and the data line pins. So in this situation I actually have to add more solder and do it a second time. Usually I always have to do it a second time because I always forget. But it's not a big deal, but it's just something to note. So in this situation, this pin was really being stubborn, so I actually raised the heat on my desoldering gun. I usually don't. I like to keep it at a steady, I think 350, 400 Celsius. But in this situation, this pin was really stubborn. So I actually heated it up and it finally came free. this chip did not want to come out. So I eventually just heated up the one pin that was locked in there and it broke free. Looking back at the footage, it may seem like I was tugging at the chip. What I was doing was twisting it back and forth, hoping to just crack the last bit of solder that was left. But even so, I couldn't get it to break free. So I just heated up the leg and it eventually gave way. Looking back at the footage, this sharp chip might have actually been the one that was in the work RAM spot, which doesn't matter. They're both generally the same chip. Or it could have been one from another project or donor board I had. I know I keep these chips handy for use in the situations like this. So who knows, this might have been the one that was in the work RAM spot. I know I didn't toss it. I put it off to the side with the working chips. So here's the game fully assembled. Let's see if we can get this thing to fire up. And yeah, it fires up. So spoiler, I already tested it. That's why it has a save there. So the battery's working and the save states are working as well. So cool. This game is good as new. So that's 2 more working games. So if you're interested in cartridge repair videos, please consider subscribing. I'm going to have a lot more of these videos in the near future. I know I used to repair consoles. I am going to do that, but just right now I'm not really interested in doing that right now. So I'm going to focus more on cartridge based stuff. So just stick around for that. So in closing, I got a lot of these coming up in the future. So please like this video if you like it, comment down below, subscribe, hit the bell if you want. And once again, thank you for watching.